nominal MECO. OMS 1 is not required.
Copy and country.
Fossum and Stephanie Wilson will begin several minutes of video documentation and photography of the external tank that has been now discarded. Discovery will be about 1,450 feet away from the tank at that time. Fossum will record video using a PD-100 camcorder. Wilson will use a digital camera with a 400-millimeter lens. All of that will be downlinked about 3.5 hours into the flight for analysis by imagery experts, along with the imagery from Discovery's umbilical well cameras. As it turned out, patience was a virtue. The third time was the charm. Discovery now in its preliminary orbit.
Well, 11 months ago, the manager of the shuttle program, Wayne Hale, said that when finally Discovery got off the ground and they had about 2 weeks worth of delays, he said his heart was in his throat. I think it's hard for any of us who have just seen that, especially in high definition, to feel any other way. Absolutely remarkable. And those last shots you saw from the camera installed on the external fuel tank, those shots, you have to remember, were live television in the making. They were not still photos, and yet it is it is entirely imperceptible, the movement. At that point of separation, Space Shuttle Discovery, you saw her rise out of the picture. Actually, she was on the same trajectory. She was traveling 17,000 miles per hour, but in the zero-gravity, super-cold environment of space, it was almost imperceptible. I want to watch it again. I hope you want to watch it again. HDNet had cameras in a number of positions around the Kennedy Space Center. So let's once again, instead of this shot of the empty Launch Pad 39B, watch Discovery rise to the heavens once again.
Liftoff of the Space Shuttle Discovery, returning to the space station, paving the way for future missions beyond.
Discovery roll program.
Houston now controlling the flight of Discovery. The space shuttle begins the journey back into orbit. Discovery completes its roll. The shuttle now heads down, wings level.
We are transferring to orbiter internal power at this time. Discovery is now running off its 3 onboard fuel cells. Coming up on a go for auto sequence start.
Okay, let's go for auto sequence start.
And we have a go for auto sequence start. Discovery's onboard computers have primary control of all the vehicle's critical functions. T-minus 17 seconds and counting. 15, 12, 11, 10, 9, 8, 7, 6. Go for main engine start. Main engine start. 2, 1. Booster ignition and liftoff of the Space Shuttle Discovery, returning to the space station, paving the way for future missions beyond.
Houston now controlling the flight of Discovery. The space shuttle.
11, 10, 9, 8, 7, 6. Go for main engine start. Main engine start. 2, 1. Booster ignition and liftoff of the Space Shuttle Discovery, returning to the space station, paving the way for future missions beyond.
Houston now controlling the flight of Discovery. The space shuttle begins the journey back into orbit. Discovery completes its roll. The shuttle now heads down, wings level, for the 8.5-minute ride to orbit. This view from a camera on the external tank's liquid oxygen feed line, showing the bird's eye view of Discovery as it races towards space, a star-spangled start to Discovery's mission. Discovery's 3 liquid fuel main engines now throttled back to 67% of rated performance, reducing the stress on the shuttle as it breaks through the sound barrier. Discovery already 3.5 miles in altitude, 1.5 miles downrange, traveling almost 750 miles an hour. Everything looking good on the bird. 57 seconds into the flight. Engines beginning to rev up. Standing by for the throttle up call from Capcom Steve Frick.
Discovery Houston, go at throttle up.
Roger, go at throttle up. Show them UHF only.
The throttle up call acknowledged by Commander Steve Lindsay.
And Discovery Houston, its expected data hits, it'll clear shortly.
Copy.
Lindsay joined on the flight deck by pilot Mark Kelly, flight engineer Lisa Nowak, and mission specialist Mike Fossum. Mission specialists Piers Sellers, Stephanie Wilson, and Thomas Ryder of the European Space Agency down on the middeck. Ryder headed for 6 months on the International Space Station.
Well, that was a peerless demonstration of man's ingenuity and a brilliant display yet again of